Good morning, folks. This is Jon Tipton. I am here with my co-host Robert Saenz, and we are pleased to bring you another exciting episode of the Texas Examiner. Today, we're very fortunate to have with us two very distinguished guests in the law enforcement community. We have Deputy Chief of Criminal Investigations Nancy Sanford from the Bexar County Sheriff's Office, and we also have with us Kevin Wright, Texas Ranger with the Department of Public Safety, who is assigned to the Kendall County area. Folks, we have a wealth of experience sitting at this table, to include Robert, who is an ex-Border Patrol chief, the law enforcement experience sitting here right now.
Well, and you fought Somali pirates too. So
well, the Somali pirates, and and law enforcement isn't just going out and arresting people every day. It's also dovetails into Customs and Border Patrol. It delves into a whole myriad of subsets of law enforcement. And between the four of us sitting here today, I guarantee you there's quite a bit of experience. So I'm really hoping that you, the viewer and the listener, will take away something from this podcast as we attempt to educate you on how DPS, the Texas Rangers, local law enforcement communities work together to protect you, the constituents and the citizens of the great state of Texas.
That's a good place to start. Ranger Wright, Kevin Wright,
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Why don't we find out a little bit about who Kevin Wright is? Take the mystery away from the Texas Ranger that lives here in our county. Tell us how you got here, Kevin.
Oh, wow. So I'm originally from Houston, Texas. And so I started my law enforcement career in 1996 in Stephenville, Texas. I worked for their police department for 3 years. And then in 1999, I joined the Texas Department of Public Safety. I spent about 5 years in highway patrol, about 5 years as a DPS narcotics sergeant. And in 2010, I made Texas Ranger. Went out to El Paso for about 3.5 years. And then I came here to the Texas Hill Country in 2013. We've lived in Bernie the whole time since we've been, since 2013. My wife is, she's awesome, a smart woman. She works for Wells Fargo in San Antonio. I have 2 daughters. They go to Bernie Middle School North and Bernie High. And we're members of the Curry Creek Church. And we just love being part of the fabric of Bernie, Texas.
Thank you, Ranger Wright. Nancy Sanford, Bexar County.
Yes, sir.
Now you've had an interesting career. You haven't just lived in Bexar County or the surrounding area here. You've been all over the world. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started in law enforcement?
Yes, absolutely. I actually started my law enforcement career in 1983. I was in the Boston Drug Enforcement Administration office. Came on right out of college, actually. I was going to go to law school to become an FBI agent. That was my goal, and decided, you know what, DEA's hiring. It was back in the time where there were a lot of cocaine wars going on and lots of drugs and not enough agents. And actually, my college track coach asked me about, what do you think about DEA? And I said, well, that's completely different, but definitely interested. So I interviewed out of Indiana. I was at Purdue University and didn't hear anything, headed to Boston to start law school. And next thing I hear, that I was accepted to the academy in Glencoe, Georgia, and decided, okay, I'm ready. Don't have to go to law school now. And went through the training down there in Glencoe. And back then, of course, that was many moons ago, they like to transfer you from one end of the country to the other. Mm-hmm. I was single, ready to go at the time. And so they said, guess what? You're going to San Antonio, Texas.
Well, that's not a bad duty post.
There's worse places that you could be as a DEA agent.
Well, I have to admit, I didn't know much about San Antonio at the time. Yeah, basically, urban cowboy was what I knew.
Right.
It looked intriguing at the time. But no, I was ready to take on the challenge and moved here and definitely started enjoying the job right away. Met my husband here, who was with the U.S. Attorney's Office. and started a family,
Nice.
and was very fortunate not to have to move. One of the policies with the Drug Enforcement Administration is that after so many years, you transfer. They like you to move around the country, and you sign that mobility agreement,
Sure.
which I knew would come about. But, government started running out of money. There wasn't money to move people unless you went management. I stayed as a field agent. I just absolutely enjoyed my job as a Drug Enforcement Administration agent. Got to do a lot of traveling, a lot of
You
international.
did some undercover work too, didn't you?
Yeah, did a lot of undercover work. I was the only female here for a few years. And that
Wow.
was one of the reasons I got sent here, because they didn't have any young agents and they didn't have any females. So,
That's interesting.
yeah.
1983, you were in Glencoe?
Yes, sir.
We were there together, probably. Yes, I was on the Border Patrol there. Yeah.
June to September.
Yes, I think we probably crossed paths.
Maybe there's some video back then.
Right. Let's hope not. But it's interesting. I wish the Border Patrol had hired you because you were a track star, huh? We could have used you more than
Track
DEA.
star.
I don't know. I saw them sitting in those Spanish classes. I don't think I could have
Didn't
done
like
it.
that?
That was tough.
Yeah.
That was a tough curriculum.
Right. So Ranger Wright, what inspired you to become a Texas Ranger?
Wow. One of my best friend's dads was Houston Police Department.
Mhm.
And I remember we would stand at the bus stop on their corner, and he would work night shift for Houston PD. So he'd be coming home about the time we're waiting for the bus in the mornings. And he just always had the greatest stories. And, even whether it was there at the bus stop or later on when we're hanging out in the swimming pool or whatever, he just had great stories. He was a great role model to this day, still a great role model. I keep in touch with him. So that was probably my first introduction into what a law enforcement officer is. A cop is not always a cop. Cops are human beings. Cops are fathers, husbands, good people in the community. And so when I went to college, I originally I played college baseball. So I wanted to be a coach. If I wasn't a professional baseball player.
Right.
So, of course I knew that not everybody makes that. So, but a couple of years into it, I changed my direction. I thought I wanted to get into law enforcement. And so, I stuck with that through college. And after I graduated college, went to work for Stephenville Police Department because I graduated from Tarleton State University. And just from there, I'd always thought about driving a black and white, going to work for DPS, being a state trooper. And in 1999, I applied and got on, and been a little bit all over the state of Texas ever since.
Wow.
So
They give you a new Crown Vic when you signed the dotted line?
not a new one, not a new one. But I tell you what, my first duty station was Ozona, and for a while I got to drive one of those old Caprices that had
wow.
the Corvette LT1 engine.
Right.
And in Ozona, Texas, wide open roads. So there may have been some fast driving out in West Texas.
It's kind of hard not to put your foot down when you're out there because it's just endless.
All right. We have not only do we have some great law enforcement officers here today, John, that have a lot of experience, but they're also both of them are very formally educated. And,
Yes.
and which is great to hear that when you have law enforcement officers that not only are they trained in their academy and law enforcement, but they also receive a formal education. So kudos to both of you,
Thank you.
for that as well.
Yeah, and having grown up in roughly the same time frame as y'all, it's not easy to have, number one, have that mindset and that plan of where you're wanting to head, and then life throws you curveballs. But just going to college, in the 80s and in some cases maybe the early 90s wasn't an easy task. I mean, everybody thinks back then everybody was like Animal House out partying and stuff, but to stay focused
Right.
and achieve your goals, that's a huge testament to who y'all are as individuals as well.
Thank you.
Ranger Wright, I got to ask you this. What are some misconceptions or debunk some of the myths of being a Texas Ranger?
We don't all know Chuck Norris.
You don't know Chuck
We
Norris?
don't know Chuck
Okay,
Norris.
okay.
I'm sure some of the guys up in the Dallas area have
Sure.
met him because I think he lives up there.
Sure.
But I mean, that's always neat when people talk about Walker, Texas Ranger,
Right.
and do you know Chuck Norris? It's always funny. That guy has done more for the Texas Rangers in the modern age than I think anybody. He really put I'm not going to say a spin, but it gave us a good reputation
light.
with
Mhm.
with the entire country.
Right.
And I think he kind of refamiliarized the entire country with what a Texas Ranger is. And now, of course, we don't go around doing roundhouse kicks all the time, but when necessary.
Only when the cameras are there. Right. Right.
Right.
But that's one. We don't all ride horses all the time. We
Okay.
don't all sit around campfires. But
Then why'd you become a ranger?
Okay.
That sounds like fun.
I think that was the bait. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, what about Nancy being a female agent and officer? It's not easy in law enforcement. It's still kind of a boys' club, isn't it? And you got to arrive to this position as the deputy chief, which is probably the second in command in some sorts. Is that correct?
It's a little further down than that.
Okay, but you are in charge of criminal investigations,
Yes.
which is one of the probably, in my opinion, one of the most exciting parts of the job.
Yes, I was very fortunate. I was actually retired in 2015. I had worked with the Sheriff Javier Salazar, in the drug enforcement world when he was with SAPD and narcotics, and we had gotten to work a few cases together, gotten to know him, and he actually sought me out and asked me if I was interested. Of course, he came into office, was elected in 2017, and I immediately went to work for him then. I felt very honored that he had asked me, because it had been several years since I had seen him, and we kind of lost touch. At the time, I didn't have my peace officer's license because as a federal agent in Texas, you're not a peace officer, but that was fine. I was able to get that within the first year.
Right.
And started out as the deputy chief over criminal investigations, and I'm still in that position now. It's definitely been challenging, completely different job than the Drug Enforcement Administration, but so rewarding, really rewarding.
And can you share with us probably one or two investigations that have stood out in your career that you could discuss?
On the state side?
Yeah, as the deputy chief for Bexar
Deputy
County.
Chief. Gosh, right now, being over criminal investigations, so I handle all crimes against persons, crimes against property. The sheriff also initiated the organized crime division, and so that entails the covert side, the intelligence side, the uniform gang, street crimes, interdiction side, and there's a lot of different cases, but what's so special and so wonderful about this is that we end up coming together and working together on murder cases. When we have homicides, there's always there could be somebody, of course, that's not arrested right away, and based on us being able to call our tag organized crime division and say, hey, here's the leads. Can you go out and try and find this person, set up on their, addresses, any kind of leads we have. And so then the homicide investigators can do their job. And I say that to say that on a lot of these bigger cases, let's say the Andrean McDonald case, that was a huge case back in 2019.
Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it started out as a welfare check on a missing person. Miss McDonald had not been seen. It was only a day, actually less than a day, but she was one of these very consistent people, routine, showed up to work out, showed up for work, and nobody had heard from her. And so her friends went over to check on her in the county. She lived in the county, and that's why we got called. And she could not be located at first. So we started, looking for her, and her husband at the time came home. We immediately started interviewing and talking to him. Things were not adding up, and the investigation continued. She was missing for several months, and in the meantime, we were able to arrest him on a tampering with evidence case charge. And in April, she went missing in February of 2019, and in June was when we found her remains out in actually out in Comal County, in Bexar County, right there on the line, right there at the Cibola. And so then the whole homicide investigation, it never stopped, but it intensified at that point. And a few years went by. Prosecutors, of course, were looking at it. We were able to charge him with murder. And finally, it was January of 2023, we went to trial, and he was convicted in February.
Is this the offender that was an officer in the Army out of Fort
Yes, sir.
Sam? Okay, I remember now. It's coming back full
Yes.
It was
circle.
Lackland.
Lackland. Okay, but he was an Army guy though.
He was
on
in
Lackland.
intelligence.
Okay, so he was on the Hill, and that was interesting. I remember thinking to myself, with a military background and just thinking about how that works. And I was an MP in the Army, and so I'm thinking, going through my head the procedures and all the paperwork and talking back and forth between CID at Lackland, or actually probably Air Force AFSOI there, to coordinate the efforts and make sure that, because it's sticky on the military side. I know there's so many legal things that you've got to jump through, and so tell us a little bit about that. Was that intense? Were you detailed and involved in that level of the investigation?
Yes, we all were. We are at a point with the sheriff's office where a lot of times we take on other duties, wear a lot of different hats because of our manpower issues, and we did get involved with the military. There was a chance that he could have placed the body on Camp Bullis.
Oh, goodness.
And so we spent weekends, weeks, days, weeks, searching for her body. And we did do a lot of coordination with Camp Bullis and some other of the places, parks. We set up our mobile command post. We actually asked the public for help. We had hundreds of volunteers. We set up search teams. It was quite an event. It went over, like I said, it went over several months, and we never stopped searching for her. We continued. We had a lot of help from local search parties and teams. Excuse me. And a lot of community involvement, but the military did get involved, and they were very helpful to us.
I back in 2018, I ran a portion of Camp Bullis. We had the Small Arms Instructor Training Academy. In fact, we've had it during the time. That was back when the government, we had all kinds of money for the global war on terror. And on Camp Stanley, as the commander of this marksmanship unit, I had a bunker out on Camp Stanley. And if you've never been out on Camp Stanley, yeah, you've got a bunker, and you will go from the gate to that bunker. You won't step one way this way, one way this way. So no matter all those other bunkers that are out there, I had one. And at one time, I had more ammunition in that bunker than was in the entire country of Afghanistan.
My goodness.
And so our mission was to train actual marksmanship to people that were deploying to country. And I had so much ammunition. I'm going, man, there's no way. I mean, I can only go to the range so much because, as an admin guy, I'm just signing more paperwork. I don't get to do any of the fun stuff. Mm-hmm. So I had a great idea. Why don't we reach out to our local law enforcement and see what kind of training they need? We've got the ammunition. Nobody's sitting there with an account book going, oh, Tipton authorized, 20,000 rounds of .556 to. Right. But we trained FBI, we trained ATF, we trained
Nice.
all branches, local law enforcement. It was very successful. So I just imagine the resources that were required to go out on the Camp Bullis and look for
And part of the
everybody goes
bureaucracy.
and the bureaucracy.
Yes.
But I'm thinking, as a layperson, they go through a process of, okay, there's a missing person, there's a body out there somewhere. Okay, I'm smart enough to know that after a certain amount of time, there's going to be decomposition. Then there's going to be animals. There's going to
Sure.
be all these different things that could clue you in to where this could possibly be, but not taking into consideration the vast amount of area that you have to cover. So very resource intensive. And then of course my accounting brain kicks in and go, who's paying for all of this?
He always asks that. But, but before I want to get back to you, Ranger Wright, on a question, but a similar question. But Nancy, may I call you Nancy?
Absolutely.
I have to call you Chief.
No,
Okay.
no,
The
not
Border
yet.
Patrol- The Border Patrol, we have to call the chief even after he retires.
Oh, wow.
So Nancy, while you have the opportunity here on this podcast, is there a particular case where you'd like to engage the public support? Like in that case, is there something that you want to share with our viewers that perhaps they can help Bexar County?
I have a completely different case. It's actually a properties crime case, but it's been on the news. It's affected a lot of people. And what it entails is the theft of services, theft of food trailer trucks, the food trucks that you see that have become so popular these days. Well, San Antonio is actually very well known for manufacturing these
Yes.
and selling
Mhm.
these food trucks. And we came across a case of some concerned citizens that actually called the sheriff, and then my investigation unit got involved, and come to find out these suspects, three of them have now been arrested, but they have been scamming people from across the country who are giving large amounts of money, down payments, for these food trucks that they did have a location here where they were selling them. They did sell a few at first, but then they got into the habit of taking their money, saying they were working on the food trucks, taking advantage of people who were resident aliens, who might not have spoken good English.
This is probably their business.
Their
Well,
life,
life savings
their
food
livelihood.
truck,
yeah.
That's right.
They start a little taquito truck or something, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and we've had complainants from Kansas City, from Dallas, Houston, all other states who were completely scammed, who gave over their life savings. I think one complainant had given $50,000 over.
So you think there's people out there in the community that probably have not reported it because they're embarrassed or they didn't know they
Yes.
could? So you'd
Or
like
afraid. They
Right.
may be afraid. And right now, we've had several meetings. We're up to almost 70 victims, 70
wow.
complainants, and almost at $1 million.
Wow.
And how much money
So
they've
you'd
stolen.
like more people to come out and let you know if they've been scammed or they suspect they've been scammed.
Yes, and I probably won't say it exactly right, but the company was called Tu Tralita.
Tu Trelita, yeah.
Yes.
Tu Trelita, yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, you said it
Sounds
perfectly.
like somebody over by the airport. I know there's a
There's a few
facility
in
by
town,
the airport.
manufacturer, yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that, and hopefully our viewers will share that with your friends, family, or if you think you've been a victim, contact the Bexar County Sheriff's Department.
And in the event that you forget, how to or you're just heat of the moment, you can always shoot us an email to info@thetexasexaminer.com, and we'll make sure to forward that information on to the people that need to see it.
Thank you, John. Ranger Wright, is there a case, particular investigation or case that sticks out in your career that you're most proud of?
Well, there's a few of them that I'm proud of throughout the years. We had out in El Paso, I remember we had a couple of teenagers that were kidnapped. These are separate cases, by the way. A couple of teenagers that were kidnapped one from the Graham, Texas area, one from the Fort Worth area. And both of their kidnappers brought them down to El Paso, attempting to get into Juarez. So one of them, I was actually able to find the suspect vehicle with the juvenile that had been kidnapped prior to them getting to the border. This was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I just with working with the victim's sister, we're able to find them, take the suspect into custody, and return the girl home safely. The other, they actually got into Juarez. They actually crossed the border. So that was a challenge as far as working several days with the Mexican authorities, with the U.S. Marshal's Office, because they are the ones who really had the contacts over in Juarez. And we were able to recover the girl within a couple of days. And then a few days later, we actually got the suspect brought back over as well. So those were satisfying cases.
Absolutely.
for me.
What was the long-term goal of the offender in that situation? I mean, was it just a
Sex
ransom for money,
trafficking,
or
The one from Juarez, the
Mhm.
one that actually got to Juarez, the victim told us when we debriefed her later on, she said that he was planning on going to South America. He had actually tattooed her on the other side over in Juarez.
Sounds like sex trafficking.
It was absolutely sex trafficking.
Right.
And
Caucasian female or minority female?
Hispanic female and a white male. And he was, if memory serves me correctly, I think he was 27 and she was 13.
Oh no!
So they met online. He was from Ohio,
Mm.
and he had an ankle bracelet on from a previous case where he had kidnapped a girl in Pennsylvania. So he cut his ankle bracelet off, came down to the Fort Worth area, and kidnapped this girl when she got out of junior high. And so
Probably groomed her on the internet for a while and got
Absolutely.
her to trust him. And then when you say kidnap something, I'm assuming it probably wasn't the classic kidnap where you grab him, throw him in the van. She probably went in
Like a runaway.
willingly with him.
correct.
And I share that because I do a lot of speaking on human trafficking and sex trafficking, and a lot of people need to understand that it's not the classic TV where you grab somebody's kid at the store and take him. A lot of times they communicate with them for months on end or years, and they groom them, they get their confidence, and then they pick them up at school or at an event, and
That's exactly what
then
happened.
it's too late. Yeah.
Yes.
No longer is it the ice cream truck company.
No, it's a little more sophisticated, and thank you for that. Thank you for
Sure.
for sharing
That
that.
is a great story.
Is there a case like we asked, Chief Sanford here? Is there a case that you would like to share with the public, our viewers, that perhaps they can help the Texas Rangers at this time, an active case?
Well, see, we have a specific dedicated ranger who works like our cold cases, the cold
Yeah.
case homicides, and for Company F, which is this whole Central Texas area. So I don't normally work those. However, I will say that when I first got here in 2013, the sheriff's office started working a cold case from 2004, and it was Beth Hicks. Beth Hicks was an adult probation officer here in Kendall County, and she was murdered outside of her home off of Johns Road. And it was a very, she was beaten to death. There were a lot of interviews done, a lot of things done the 10 years prior before me even getting here. And so the sheriff's office had reopened it. I helped a little bit with that, but the FBI was brought in as well. And so, again, 20 years, a lot of fading memories, things like that. But if there's anybody out there that knew her, knew anything about it, that may have suspected anything at all, any new information would be good information.
And it's Beth Hicks.
Beth
That's the name of
Hicks,
the
yes.
individual.
And-
And no
and it was-
suspects,
There were suspects, but different leads, never
persons of
panned out.
interest. But, yes.
Correct.
And this was 2004 time frame?
2004.
Okay, so Bernie was still Bernie for the most part at that time frame, and so everybody still knew everybody. So you're hoping that maybe there's somebody left in the community, or if they've left the community and happen across our podcast, if they recollect something,
And the name is Beth Hicks.
and the name is Beth Hicks, that they can reach out to the Texas Rangers.
Texas Rangers or the Kendall County Sheriff's Office.
Okay,
The
great.
Kendall
And-
County Sheriff's Office retains the original records. But obviously, we will help him out in any way we can.
Thank you for that, Major. Nancy, are there any shifts in criminal activity right now in our area, Bexar County to Kendall County? Because I know the crime kind of sifts back and forth. Or any trends that you'd like to share with us so we can let our community know?
Sure. And I actually live not in Kendall County, but on the north side of Bexar County, northwest side. So I do see things happening in both areas. And what I can tell you right now is there's a dramatic increase in the theft of vehicles and the burglary of vehicles.
It's like
And
down at the rim. Seems like every time I
yeah, but
turn
it's
around,
moved north.
it's coming back up this way.
Yeah, there's a lot of apartments now they're building, and
Mm.
apartments that are now inhabited on the I-10 corridor. Very easy access on and off. They can get into these cars very quickly. And the sheriff has done a lot of work on putting the information out, like the 9 p.m. routine. Check your car, take your weapons out. Don't leave weapons in the vehicle, but check it and make sure they're not in there. Lock up your car, lock up any valuables. That should just be a routine now, because unfortunately we have a lot of younger teenagers, kids out there that know. They go around rattling doors on vehicles to see if they're open. And until people stop putting or leaving items in their car, it's going to continue.
Sure.
So the burglary thefts really in all areas of the county have dramatically, exponentially increased. And I think it can be prevented. A lot of that can be prevented if the community realizes what's going on. Nobody wants to be a victim of this crime. And what's happening also was these kids are looking for guns.
Right.
And we found that the guns are being used. We have a lot of stolen weapons out there, and they've even been used on officers. That's unfortunately become a trend. So we have to get this under control. And the more information we can put out there, the more awareness, the more education, the better for Texas.
It's interesting that is something that we're talking about, because as you remember, we just did an interview with an international arms dealer and getting the information and firsthand information of transfers of illicit firearms and weapons, fast and furious.
Right.
Right. And those weapons being used against our officers. And it's really concerning to me. I live out in Candelia, out in the middle of nowhere, on a ranch, and it's fenced. And so I get in the habit. I don't always lock my car. No, I'm guilty of also leaving my pistola in
That's
the
good
vehicle.
to know. I don't live too far from you.
That's right. But it's a great reminder, because here in Kendall County, the folks that have been here a while don't really, they haven't internalized
Right.
that it's a real threat, and all it takes is that one time.
We're still living in utopia, and
I do. I leave
Yes.
my keys in my car when I go to Walgreens.
right. Well, yes.
And I'm guilty of that. But folks, this is a great reminder. Let's help this out and stop leaving our firearms and our vehicles
Laptops,
unlocked.
also
Right,
anything. Yeah,
anything.
just it's the old basics. Just lock your car and you take your valuables with you.
But it's scary that we can't do that anymore. That's
Yes.
what bothers me.
I've got to ask the fentanyl question because I hear it seems like every time I hear is fentanyl's coming. How bad is it in our area, Chief?
It's bad.
It is.
It's bad. You're not going to hear about every single seizure that happens. You're not going to hear even about defendants who are being prosecuted in federal and state court. And there is a new law now where murder can be charged for somebody who gives
The drug
fentanyl
dealer.
to a person that overdoses and dies, or as we say now, they're poisoned and die.
Yes.
We have several cases. We've actually, our organized crime division, there's a narcotics component, and they have probably 6 to 8 fentanyl cases right now that they're investigating, and we're actually working very closely with DEA on these cases.
I know of one case, I still have a lot of friends in law enforcement attorneys that I speak to, and one particular case here in San Antonio that stuck with me is they arrested this person who was actually manufacturing it here. They're not always coming from China like we think. It's getting so bad that we're manufacturing it ourselves. But this particular individual was manufacturing them and had them color coded based on the strength of the fentanyl, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it can be in pill form, it can be in powder form. It's even dangerous to the officers that are going into these homes.
Right.
We don't always know that it's fentanyl. We have to take a lot of precautions now with handling it, especially our crime scene unit. So it's definitely the drug. Unfortunately, I think it's here to stay for a while. And as it becomes more potent, then it just becomes more dangerous.
We still have heroin, cocaine in the streets.
Absolutely.
That
It's
hasn't
all still
changed.
out there. And they lace that with fentanyl.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask. Is that's what we hear a lot. The fear is, hey, yes, you're probably maybe you're just going out for an ounce of THC or marijuana, but then it come to find out it's laced with the fentanyl, and I'm thinking to myself, what business person is going to want to add something to their product that could potentially deplete their pool of customers?
Mhm.
What do you think the thought is behind lacing?
It's greed. It's all about the money. They have no regard for human life and no regard for anything but making money out of it.
Mhm.
Look at the vapes. The vape, that's a whole nother subject, but these they call them cake boxes where the vape cartridges are in them. You can add fentanyl to those.
Oh, wow.
And we have teenagers killing each other over vape cartridges that cost $10, $15. The last probably 3 to 5 homicides we've had have involved kids who are killing each other.
Intentionally by lacing it?
No, they're
Or
killing each
just
other
by
over the sale of these vape cartridges.
Is it the addictive properties of the fentanyl, or is it the and I don't know that it's addictive, I'm just
the
throwing it out.
high?
But is it the high? Are people looking for that? Therefore, they're going to go by knowing that it's laced, but not understanding the risks.
I think it's a lot of times they don't even know
Okay.
that there's fentanyl in there. So they're going for that high, and there are some dangers involved. The people are buying Narcan off the counters to
To prepare
to prepare
for an
and
overdose or
yeah,
in case it happens.
because the adverse
Right. The adverse effects.
effects of it.
I think what you were alluding to, John, was that why is a drug dealer lacing something without the person knowing, running the risk that his customer could die?
Right. That's I still struggle with that a little bit. I understand the financial implications behind it, but if I'm a drug dealer,
And I want marijuana from you, you're going to sell me marijuana.
I'm going to give you the
But
best
if I ask
product I can.
but if I ask for you to lace it with fentanyl, then you're going to charge me more. But why would you lace it?
Knowing that it could hurt somebody.
And
It almost seems to me you have to have the
intent.
psychology behind this is
Yeah.
probably very, very interesting about why
Right.
the offenders do this.
Right.
It just boggles my mind that another human being would intentionally lace a substance that
Sure.
arguably could be,
Or could it be cross contamination sometimes too? That they got marijuana, they also have fentanyl in their labs or manufacturing, and there's some cross contamination. Or do we know?
I imagine that could be possible, but the high is going to be a lot more intense.
Those that want that high, yes,
And of
for sure.
Yeah, and of
For
course
sure.
that's something that the addict is always after, a better high.
Well, and I've seen in the medical business, we've seen a lot of patients that, they start with an injury and they're on hydrocodone, then oxycodone, then OxyContin, then the doctor cuts them off because of fear of misuse, and then now they're looking for something to supplement it, so they go to heroin, or
right.
and it's just a slippery slope. And some of these people are good people. You know, they were teachers, law enforcement, even doctors that happened to be in a situation that became a slippery slope, and it's sad. That's still happening in our country.
If there's one constant in my career, it's that I've come across so many people who've committed these crimes. They're decent people.
Mhm.
They've just made a very bad mistake.
Right.
And that is a constant throughout my entire career. And you know, I'm sure you're the same way. You always try to treat people the way you want to be treated, and kind of keep that in mind. Don't lose sight of the human element. That it is good people do make mistakes.
Enforcement with empathy, right?
What's that?
Enforcement with empathy.
Yes,
When
absolutely.
you got to put yourself in their shoes. Ranger, shifting a little bit, the hot topic right now is the Operation Lone Star.
Mhm.
How has that affected the Texas Rangers, or are you guys involved in that? Go down to the border?
Yes, absolutely.
And
So as far as the Rangers and DPS in general,
right.
DPS is sending what's known as our Special Operations Group
Mhm.
down to the border, several locations, basically trying to apprehend the illegal aliens that don't want to be caught.
Right.
And so the Rangers have operators within the Special Operations Group. I personally I fly drones embedded with the Special Operations Group. So we will go and fly drones and help out the SOG guys.
Right.
Try to find the ones that don't want to be caught, whether it's in the brush, whether it's in Eagle Pass, you know, or down in the valley, wherever. I mean, you can.
So you're actually gone to the border then. You've been doing some of these assignments.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
wow.
Pretty often for about the past year and a half. It's been about 1 week out of every month that I go all the way down to the border.
You know, I'm a little bit jealous because I guarantee you, because I fly UASs or drones as well, and my investigative company, I don't have the cool toys that you guys do have. So I'm sitting here always trying to figure out.
We've got some pretty cool
I need
stuff.
IR. I need.
He's got a lot of toys too.
The
That's
thermal
pretty cool.
the thermal capability on these drones is just
Pretty spot on.
off the charts.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
Yeah, when I was in the Border Patrol, we had the FLIRs and the thermals, and I'm sure they're nothing like what they are today, but they were cool to have.
The zoom capability on our cameras is phenomenal as well.
That's fantastic.
When I first started doing it about a year and a half ago, I was blown away by the technology.
It reminds me, early in my Army career, when I was in avionics mechanic, we went to Fort Huachuca as part of JTF 6.
Yes.
And very interesting story down there. I mean, it's past the time now, so I can give a few details. But we had an Apache helicopter, and of course, you know, they're flying over the border, and they're always looking out over the border. And we had brand new the FLIR on the Apache back then was, you know, day hot, night hot, all that gee whiz stuff, and we get to watch the tapes when they came back, right? But I was shocked. When I went out onto the flight line on Huachuca after one of our missions, and on the side of the bullet holes on the side of the Apache, and I'm like, my goodness.
Yes. Yeah. I hear this is close to me because having worked on the border for so many years, and I see the DPS down there. We always work closely with DPS, but how is it actually going on today on the border, Kevin? Because we've always had great relationships, Border Patrol, DPS, but when I hear the news, it's like there's conflict. Is that accurate, or are you guys working closely with Border Patrol?
I think that's from my personal, I guess my personal experience. I've never seen that. I mean, you get some flare-ups between personalities from time to time,
Right.
but by and large, Border Patrol and DPS are working
Still working together.
And I will say this, that the morale for Border Patrol it's in the dumps. For the line agents that want to get out there, they want to do their job. It is just, it's unbelievable how they feel they've been handcuffed. And that's coming straight from a lot of the line agents that I've spoken with personally.
Well, it's and I believe that when I was in the Border Patrol, we had 21 chief patrol agents at different sectors from Brownsville to California, and these chiefs had a lot of authority. Washington would just provide us with resources, budgets, and personnel. But for the most part, operationally, every day the chief would make the call, and he or she would coordinate with the other chiefs in the sectors to move people around. So, but now seems like the Border Patrol is run from Washington D.C. now, headquarters, which it's kind of like the Pentagon running a war for you in Afghanistan.
Right.
It's not always effective when the decision makers are far from there. But it's good to hear that at least you guys are working together, because when you hear the news, it almost sounds like the tensions are between the law enforcement, that DPS is going down there to do and they're not letting Border Patrol do the work. But that's not what you're seeing. You're seeing more cooperation.
I would say that's probably at the higher levels.
Political levels.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, down in the field, we're always helping them down there. They're very appreciative of us helping them.
Good.
We're very appreciative of any of the assets that they want to bring, whether it's a canine
Yes.
or whatever.
Sure.
So the line agents and the guys on the ground with DPS get along fantastically.
Well, we're great sign cutters, which
Absolutely.
is called tracking for some people.
Absolutely.
That's one of the things I still use today that they taught me in the Border Patrol.
Absolutely, that skill is very useful down there,
Yes.
and it's also a perishable skill.
Yes.
That if they're not down in the field doing that, if they're not down there on the line doing that, they can lose that skill. So
That's a good point.
it's important to keep them down there doing that.
Yeah, I'm just curious, and you may not know the answer to this, but when we're bringing law enforcement from other states, commissioned in their states, how does that work when they show up and now you're working side by side? Is there reciprocity with their peace officer license? Did the governor have to sign some documentation to make them peace officers in Texas, or are they just there in a supporting role without any law enforcement authority?
By and large, I think they are in a supporting role, but I think that something within those emergency powers that the governor signed, and I'm sure some type of agreement with the governor of those states as well. I think we've had Nebraska down. I've personally worked with Florida Highway Patrol, and those guys and girls coming over are fantastic. Also, they're there to do the job. They believe in what they're doing. They're here to help. And so, God bless them for coming down and helping out.
Amen.
Because it's needed and it's much appreciated.
Well, I'm very happy to have these fine law enforcement professionals here. Thank you for making the time, Chief Sanford and Ranger Wright. Are there any parting words you'd like to share with our viewers, Ranger?
I'd like to say that living here in the Texas Hill Country is fantastic. And for a multitude of reasons. But, I talk to officers all throughout the country, and they don't have the support that we have here in the Hill Country. If I'm in a convenience store or a restaurant, I still have people come up. Sometimes they'll buy our lunch, which is appreciated but not expected by any means. But they come up and they thank us for what we do.
That's right.
And it's a good feeling. We have that here in this part of Texas, at least. And so, like I said, I'm proud to be a part of the fabric of Bernie and the Hill Country, and I love the people here.
I'm proud to have you.
Absolutely.
And Chief, what do you have to say, Nancy, to our viewers?
Well, it's great being out here. We work a lot with Bernie PD, Kendall County, the Texas Rangers, several cases. Law enforcement in general really gets along well. I hear that from other federal departments that come in, and we're very lucky here. And I have to say, in Bexar County, it's very much like Kendall County, where the other day we were at a restaurant and somebody bought us lunch, and I wasn't even in complete uniform, but they knew we were with the sheriff's department. And it really does, it's great. They buy you lunch, but it's nice to know that people do appreciate our services. And I think being in Military City, USA helps.
That has a lot to do with that, yeah.
But we appreciate all the community support in Bexar County, and we look forward to working with these other law enforcement agencies on a daily basis. And thank you for having us, because I think the education and awareness, whether it's on fentanyl or sexual, exploitation of children, it's so important to get the word out.
And it's so it's just refreshing to hear that, and to reaffirm, I mean, Kendall County, the Texas Hill Country, the greater Texas Hill Country, we are unique. You know, you have Texas, and then now we have the Hill Country. And I think people that are looking to move to the area, that's kind of abstract. They're not really thinking about that. They're more thinking about, you know, value of their property and how much
School.
money can they make if they buy a house and then
Right.
sell it in a year. But the real value to where we live, and both of y'all hit the nail
culture.
right on the head, is our culture and our genuine love and compassion and empathy for people. And I think Kendall County's right at the top of that list
Sure.
when we're going down what are the pros
Sure,
for
absolutely.
living here.
Yeah. John, you had I didn't mean to cut
No,
you
no,
off.
no, no, you're
Did
fine.
you have any more questions of
Well,
these five people?
I would like to ask Ranger Wright, and I don't think we really adequately covered this at the beginning, but your specific role, what are you charged with in your region, in your area, and how does that translate to the general public? Because I'm not sure the general public, they think Texas Ranger, okay, he's law enforcement, he's out there, but what do they really do? And I guess I'm getting to, you know, reports of official oppression. You're investigating other law enforcement agencies. What exactly is
Sure,
your
we kind of do all of that. So
right?
we're the primary investigative division of the Texas Department of Public Safety. And so, that being said, any officer involved shooting that happens with our troopers, we're going to run lead on that. Any type of employee investigation, if it's criminal in nature, we will investigate
Like
that.
public corruption as well?
And we do public
Yep.
corruption for not just DPS, but for every government entity.
Or the
You know,
internal affairs for the state.
Well, internal affairs, but criminal. We don't do administrative
Gotcha.
stuff. We do criminal stuff.
Gotcha.
So, but yes, whether it's an officer who's done something wrong, official oppression, like you mentioned earlier, I've investigated several of those. Whether it's some type of misallocations of funds on the, you know, on behalf of like a county official or
Right.
something along those lines, we can get called in for those. But and a lot of our work is helping out the smaller agencies that don't have some of the resources, like Bexar County Sheriff's Office. Bexar County Sheriff's Office is, and I've worked with their CID before. They're top notch, and they're very self sufficient. Now, granted, we have jurisdictional things that you know, we work together on and things like that. But you know, our motto is, you know, whatever we have, it's yours, and it's the same with them. So we work very well together. But some of the smaller agencies, like say, you know, Bandera County Sheriff's Office, and Bernie and Kendall County are very self-sufficient as well. They're very good departments, and so. But some of the smaller ones, we help them out with some of their major investigations.
And so you mentioned it earlier, or I can't remember. Somebody said something about fear of retaliation or fear of reprisals. And if there is somebody in the greater Kendall County or Hill Country community that thinks that they may know something or have some information, either official oppression or abuse of government funds, whatever that case may be, how would that individual, number one, go about making the complaint, especially if the complaint is against the agency that has jurisdiction, right? Number one, and then number two. Well, let's do number one first.
Okay.
I just forgot number two.
So our standard protocol, we get contacted with things, with requests to look into that kind of stuff. Now, as far as investigating an officer, an agency, a county agency, it's obviously not something we kind of take willy-nilly. We're just going to run in and do an investigation. Sure. So we usually have them meet with the district attorney's office. And that's our standard protocol, because if the DA's office thinks that there's something there, they're going to request our involvement, and we're going to get involved.
So usually the district attorney is going to request you guys.
Correct.
So it's triaged at that level, at the DA
yes,
level. Okay.
Yes. On certain things like that, the public corruption, like an officer or you know, like an agency head or
DPS trooper or sheriff or not police necessarily, right? But as long as it's
Well, and police officers too.
Police
yes.
officers too. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. We
Good. Well,
we
you've
do
got
everything.
a lot of authority and a wide range of scope.
And it's something we don't take lightly.
Yes.
It's something that investigating police officers is not
No.
the most fun part of my job, but it's a necessary part
Yeah.
of my job.
So how would a citizen, again, if they think they know something, is there an 800 number? Is there a website? How do they go to, again, do they go to their local law enforcement, or how would they initiate the triage for a case like
Sure.
that?
I think it kind of depends on what the case is. If it's to do with a particular officer, I can tell you my two agencies here, Kendall County and Bernie PD, they take it very seriously if
Right.
somebody comes and complains on their officers.
Okay.
So that I would say my first step would be to do that, to go
To the
to
department.
the agency, talk to one of their supervisors as far as and put out the complaint. If it's criminal in nature, normally they're going to give us a call and say, hey, we don't want to investigate our own criminally. We'd like you to do it.
Right.
So, and whether it's me or whether it's a ranger from another area, sometimes they'll do that because since we work with Kendall County Sheriff's Office, we work with Bernie PD, or I do personally. It might be a ranger from San Antonio that comes over and looks into that.
Gotcha. Well,
I think they pretty much covered everything. That's
yes, a lot of authority here, and
absolutely.
but also I can see there's a human element to both the chief here and the ranger.
Absolutely.
It's refreshing to know that they're they're part of the community as well. So they care about us.
Absolutely. Yep.
I mean, they'll definitely put us in jail if we do something wrong, but
You maybe.
they'll do it with compassion.
Yes, compassion, absolutely.
The empathy cuffs.
Yes, exactly. Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in again to the Texas Examiner. And again, if you have any comments or questions that you'd like to send for Texas Ranger Kevin Wright or Deputy Chief Nancy Sanford with Bexar County, please send it to us, and we'll gladly get it to them and put it on one of our later shows or on our Facebook page.
And folks, again, just as you're going about your day after you've watched this and you've listened to this, please take a moment of silence, bow your head, and offer up prayers and hedges of protection around our first responders and our law enforcement officers as they go out there every single day, not knowing what they're going to face. And we are so grateful for everything that they do for our community. And just remember, in every profession, every single profession, there's a bad apple. And that one bad apple doesn't necessarily color the rest of the organization because of those actions. So keep your first responders and law enforcement officials at the forefront of your mind. And while you're at it, reach down, click the like, subscribe. I have to get in the obligatory, please. Follow us and share this information amongst your friends and your groups and your family so that everybody can partake and understand what's going on in your community. I think that's it.
That's it. Thank
All right,
you so
folks. Y'all have a great day. Thank you very much. Texas Examiner signing off.